It was one of those Saturday evenings when the city seemed to buzz with life. Families filled the streets, heading to restaurants for weekend dinners. Children's laughter echoed from nearby playgrounds, and couples walked hand in hand under the warm streetlights. But inside the cozy Italian restaurant on 5th Street, David Thompson sat staring at his 8-year-old daughter Lily, wondering how everything had become so hard. The restaurant had always been their special place. Red checkered tablecloths, soft jazz music playing in the background, and the smell of fresh garlic bread that used to make Lily's eyes light up. They'd been coming here every Saturday for 6 months now, ever since his world had turned upside down, ever since cancer had taken away the most important person in both their lives. David was 38 and ran a successful tech company downtown. People called him smart, driven, someone who could solve any problem. But sitting across from his daughter, watching her push food around her plate without really eating, he felt completely lost. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that mommy isn't coming back? How do you fill a hole that big? Lily used to chatter nonstop during these dinners. She'd tell him about her friends at school, about the books she was reading, about her dreams of becoming a veterinarian so she could help sick puppies. Now she mostly stayed quiet, giving him small smiles that never quite reached her eyes. The silence between them felt heavy, like a weight pressing down on his chest. "Daddy, can we order?" Lily asked softly, closing her menu. She always ordered the same thing now, plain spaghetti with butter, no sauce, no cheese, nothing that might remind her of the elaborate meals her mother used to make. David waved to get their waitress's attention. Rosa had been serving them for the past few weeks. She was young, probably in her early 20s, with kind eyes and a gentle way of talking to Lily that David appreciated. At least someone could still make his daughter smile, even if it was just for a moment. "Good evening, Mr. Thompson," Rosa said warmly as she approached their table. "The usual for you both tonight?" "Yes, please," David replied, trying to sound more cheerful than he felt. "Lily will have the butter spaghetti, and I'll take the chicken parmesan." Rosa scribbled their order on her notepad and hurried away. The bakery restaurant was busy tonight, every table full of families enjoying their weekend together. David watched other parents laughing with their children, helping them cut their food, wiping sauce from little faces. He remembered when that used to be him and his wife, taking turns making silly faces to get Lily to eat her vegetables. 20 minutes passed, then 30. Lily was getting restless, coloring on the paper placemat with the crayons Rosa had brought earlier. David checked his watch and felt his patience starting to wear thin. They'd been waiting longer than usual, and Lily needed to get to bed soon. When Rosa finally appeared with their plates, David's heart sank. She set down a bowl of spaghetti with red marinara sauce in front of Lily and brought him what looked like fish instead of chicken. "I'm sorry, but this isn't what we ordered," David said, trying to keep his voice calm. He glanced at Lily, who was staring at the red sauce with tears forming in her eyes. "She ordered butter spaghetti and I asked for chicken parmesan." Rosa's face flushed pink. "Oh no, I'm so sorry, let me fix this right away. I must have mixed up the orders with another table." But Lily was already shaking her head. "I can't eat this, Daddy. The red sauce, it looks like..." She trailed off. But David knew what she meant. It looked like the medicine her mother used to take, the red liquid that was supposed to make her better but never did. "It's okay, sweetheart," David said gently, rubbing Lily's back. "Rosa will bring you the right food." Rosa quickly took the plates away, apologizing again. David tried to distract Lily by asking about her art class, but his daughter had withdrawn into herself again. She picked at the breadsticks, barely responding to his questions. Another 20 minutes went by. David watched other families receive their food, eat and leave while they continued to wait. Lily was getting tired, rubbing her eyes and slumping in her chair. This was supposed to be their time together, their one bright spot in a week full of struggles. When Rosa returned with their plates again, David's stomach dropped. The spaghetti looked right this time, but she'd brought him a salad instead of his chicken dish. "I'm really sorry about this," Rosa said quickly, noticing his expression. "The kitchen is backed up tonight and I think I grabbed the wrong plate again. I'll get your chicken right now." David felt something inside him snap. This was the third time in 2 weeks that their orders had been wrong. The third time Lily had to sit and wait while other kids enjoyed their meals. The third time their special dinner had been ruined by simple mistakes that shouldn't happen at a restaurant this expensive. "This is unacceptable," he said, his voice rising louder than he intended. "We've been coming here for months and every time something goes wrong. Do you have any idea how hard it is to get my daughter to eat anything these days? Do you know what we've been through?" The words poured out of him like water from a broken dam. 6 months of grief, of trying to be strong for Lily while falling apart inside, of working 18-hour days to avoid going home to an empty house. 6 months of watching his daughter fade away and not knowing how to help her. "She's been through enough disappointment," David continued, aware that his voice was carrying across the restaurant but unable to stop himself. "The least you could do is get a simple order right. We pay good money to eat here, and this kind of service is completely unprofessional." Rosa stood frozen, her face red with embarrassment. Other diners had stopped eating to watch the scene unfold. A manager started walking over from across the room. And Lily was sinking lower in her chair, her face hidden behind her hands. "Daddy, please stop," she whispered, but David was too caught up in his anger to hear her. "I run a business downtown, and if my employees performed like this, they'd be fired," he said. "This restaurant used to have standards. What happened to caring about your customers?" Rosa's eyes filled with tears, but she maintained her composure. "I'm truly sorry, sir. Let me get the manager and we'll make this right." "Daddy, I want to go home," Lily said, tugging on his sleeve. The sound of his daughter's voice cut through, his rage like a knife. He looked down at her small face, saw the shame and confusion there, and suddenly realized what he'd done. The entire restaurant was staring at them. Rosa was trying not to cry, and Lily looked mortified. David started, but the words wouldn't come. What could he say? That he was sorry? That grief had turned him into someone he didn't recognize? That he'd just taken out months of pain and frustration on a young woman who was just trying to do her job? Rosa quietly placed the correct spaghetti in front of Lily and walked away without another word. The manager appeared at their table, offering apologies and promising to comp their meal, but David barely heard him. He was watching his daughter, who refused to look up from her lap. They ate in complete silence. Lily picked at her spaghetti, taking tiny bites while tears rolled down her cheeks. David's chicken, when it finally arrived, tasted like cardboard. The restaurant's cheerful atmosphere felt oppressive now, the laughter from other tables a stark contrast to the heaviness at theirs. As they prepared to leave, David caught sight of Rosa by the kitchen, wiping her eyes with a napkin while an older waitress rubbed her back comfortingly. The guilt hit him like a physical blow. He'd humiliated a young woman who'd done nothing but make honest mistakes on a busy night. "Daddy," Lily said as they walked to the car, "I don't want to come back here anymore. That was really embarrassing." David unlocked their car and helped Lily into her booster seat, his hands shaking slightly. "I know, sweetheart, I'm sorry. Why were you so mean to Rosa? She's always nice to me." The simple question broke his heart. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that sometimes adults do terrible things when they're hurting? That grief can turn you into someone you don't recognize? "I don't know, Lily," he said honestly. I think Daddy's been very sad lately, and sometimes when people are sad, they say things they don't mean." As they drove home through the quiet streets, David caught glimpses of Lily in the rearview mirror. She was staring out the window, looking smaller and sadder than ever. He'd wanted to protect her from more disappointment, but instead he'd created it. He'd taken their one safe space, their weekly tradition, and poisoned it with his own pain. Back at home, as he tucked Lily into bed, she looked up at him with those big, serious eyes that seemed too old for her young face. "Daddy, are you going to be okay?" The question took his breath away. His 8-year-old daughter, who'd lost her mother and was struggling with her own grief, was worried about him. He was supposed to be taking care of her, not the other way around. "Yes, baby," he whispered, kissing her forehead. "Daddy's going to be okay. We're both going to be okay." But as he sat alone in his living room later that night, staring at a framed photo of his wife, David wasn't sure he believed his own words. He'd become someone he didn't recognize, someone his wife wouldn't recognize. And worst of all, he'd let his daughter see him at his worst moment. Tomorrow, he promised himself, he would find a way to make things right. Somehow. 3 weeks had passed since that terrible night at the restaurant, and David couldn't stop thinking about it. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Rosa's face, the way she tried so hard not to cry while he yelled at her in front of everyone. He'd replayed that moment 1,000 times, wishing he could take back every harsh word. But there were bigger problems now. Much bigger. David sat in the school counselor's office, staring at Lily's report card spread across the desk. Red marks everywhere, failed math test, missing homework assignments, notes from teachers saying she seemed distant and unengaged. This was his daughter who used to love school, who used to race to show him her gold star stickers every afternoon. Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Chen, the school counselor, said gently, "I know this is hard to hear, but Lily is struggling more than we initially thought. She's not participating in class anymore. During recess, she sits alone by the fence instead of playing with her friends." David rubbed his forehead, feeling that familiar weight in his chest. "What can I do? I've tried everything. Different foods, new bedtime routines, taking her to the park on weekends. Nothing seems to help." "Grief affects children differently than adults," Mrs. Chen explained. "Sometimes they need to express their feelings in ways that don't involve talking. That's why I wanted to suggest our after-school art program. It's run by volunteers, and it's been really helpful for kids going through difficult times." David had heard about the program but never seriously considered it. Art seemed so unnecessary when Lily was failing math and couldn't even finish a simple reading assignment. But looking at those red marks on her report card, he realized he was running out of options. "The program meets every Tuesday and Thursday from 3 to 4:30. Mrs. Chen continued. "No pressure to talk about feelings. Kids just create whatever comes to mind. Sometimes that's more healing than any conversation." That Thursday afternoon, David left work early to pick up Lily from the art program. He rarely left the office before 6, but his employees had been covering for him more and more lately. Thank goodness for understanding business partners who knew what he was going through. He walked through the familiar hallways of Oakwood Elementary, past colorful bulletin boards displaying student artwork and achievement certificates. The smell of cafeteria food and cleaning supplies brought back memories of his own childhood, when the biggest worry was remembering to bring lunch money. Following the signs to the art room, David could hear children's voices and laughter echoing from down the hall. It was a sound he hadn't heard from Lily in months. Maybe Mrs. Chen was right. Maybe this could help. He peeked through the art room doorway and stopped dead in his tracks. There, sitting at a small table covered in paint bottles and brushes, was Rosa from the restaurant. She was wearing jeans and a paint-splattered apron. Instead of her server uniform, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. But it was definitely her, the young woman he'd humiliated 3 weeks ago. David's first instinct was to turn around and leave. How could he face her after what he'd done? But then he saw Lily and his heart nearly stopped. His daughter was actually smiling. Not the small, polite smile she'd been giving him for months. Not the fake cheerfulness she put on when she thought he was watching. This was a real smile. The kind that made her whole face light up. She was showing Rosa a painting of what looked like a purple elephant, and both of them were laughing. "That's beautiful, Lily," Rosa was saying. "I love how you made the elephant purple instead of gray. Who says elephants can't be any color they want?" "My mom used to say that too," Lily replied, still smiling. "She said imagination doesn't have rules." David felt his throat tighten. Lily hadn't mentioned her mother in weeks. She'd stopped talking about her completely, as if saying her name out loud would make the pain worse. But here she was, sharing a memory, looking happy for the first time since the funeral. Rosa glanced up and saw David standing in the doorway. Her smile faded slightly, and he watched her shoulders tense. But she didn't stop what she was doing. She didn't make Lily feel uncomfortable or awkward. She just nodded at him politely and turned her attention back to his daughter. "Should we add some friends for your elephant?" Rosa asked Lily. "Maybe a pink giraffe or a blue lion?" "Can animals be any color in art?" Lily asked, picking up a bright, green paintbrush. In art, anything can be any color you want it to be, Rosa replied. That's the magic of creating something. You get to decide how the world looks. David stood there for several more minutes, watching this young woman he'd treated so terribly show such patience and kindness to his daughter. Rosa didn't know about Lily's mother. She didn't know about their grief or their struggles. She was just being genuinely caring to a child who needed it. Other parents began arriving to collect their kids. David watched as Rosa hugged each child goodbye, complimenting their artwork and encouraging them to keep creating. When it was Lily's turn, she ran over to show Rosa her finished painting, a whole zoo of rainbow-colored animals dancing under a bright yellow sun. "This is incredible, Lily," Rosa said, crouching down to Lily's level. "Look at all these happy animals. They look like they're celebrating something special." "They're celebrating because they're all different colors," Lily explained. "Mom always said being different makes the world more beautiful." Rosa's eyes met David's over Lily's head. For just a moment he saw understanding there. Not forgiveness exactly, but recognition of something deeper than their awkward history. "Your mom sounds like she was a very wise woman," Rosa said softly. Lily nodded. "She was the best mom in the whole world. I miss her every day." "It's okay to miss people we love," Rosa replied. "Missing them means they were really special to us." As they walked to the car, Lily chattered nonstop about her painting, about the other kids in the program, about Rosa, and how nice she was to everyone. It was the most David had heard his daughter talk in months. "Dad, can I come back next Tuesday?" Lily asked as he helped her into her car seat. "If you want to," David replied, though his stomach twisted at the thought of facing Rosa again. "Rosa said she comes here because she wants to be a teacher someday. She said kids need safe spaces to express their feelings." "What does that mean?" David thought carefully about his answer. "I think it means places where you can be honest about how you feel, without worrying about anyone judging you or getting upset with you. Like when I'm sad about Mom, but I don't want to make you sadder." The question hit him like a punch to the chest. "Lily, sweetheart, you never make me sadder. I'm sad because I miss Mom too, not because of anything you do or say. But when I talk about her, you look so hurt." David pulled over at a park and turned to face his daughter. "I do get sad when we talk about Mom, but it's a good kind of sad. It means we both loved her very much. You should never stop talking about her because you're worried about my feelings, okay?" Lily nodded, then asked quietly, "Can we go back to the restaurant sometime? I want to see Rosa there too." David's chest tightened. "I don't think Rosa wants to see me again, sweetheart. I wasn't very nice to her that night." "But you could say sorry," Lily suggested with the simple logic only children possess. "When I'm mean to someone, you always tell me to apologize." That night, after tucking Lily into bed, David sat at his kitchen table with his laptop, searching for information about the after-school art program. He learned that all the volunteers were unpaid, that they came because they wanted to help kids, and that many of them were college students studying education. He found Rosa's name on the volunteer list. Rosa Martinez, senior at the local university, studying elementary education with a focus on art therapy. Art therapy. She wasn't just a waitress who happened to volunteer with kids. She was studying to help children process their emotions through creative expression. She probably understood more about what Lily was going through than he did. David closed his laptop and walked to Lily's room, peeking in to check on her. She was sleeping peacefully, her purple elephant painting taped to the wall beside her bed. For the first time in weeks, she looked truly relaxed. He thought about Mrs. Chen's words. Sometimes kids need to express their feelings in ways that don't involve talking. Maybe Rosa understood something about healing that he'd missed entirely. Though, next morning over breakfast, Lily asked again about returning to the art program. "I really want to finish my animal zoo," she said, spreading peanut butter on her toast. "Rosa said we could make a whole story about them next time." "Okay," David agreed. "We'll go back on Tuesday." As Lily cheered and hugged him, David made a decision. He would go back and somehow he would find a way to apologize to Rosa. Not just because his daughter liked her, but because it was the right thing to do. He owed her that much. Maybe more. The following Tuesday couldn't come fast enough for Lily. She woke up that morning asking if it was time to go to art class yet, even though it was only 7 in the morning. David watched her eat breakfast with more enthusiasm than she'd shown for anything in months. She'd even picked out her clothes the night before, a yellow dress that her mother used to say made her look like sunshine. "Dad, do you think Rosa will remember my elephant painting?" Lily asked, bouncing slightly in her seat. "I'm sure she will, sweetheart," David replied, though his own stomach was twisted in knots about seeing Rosa again. All day at work, David found himself distracted. During important meetings, his mind wandered to what he would say to Rosa. How do you apologize for being cruel to someone? How do you explain that grief had turned you into a person you didn't recognize? When 3 o'clock finally arrived, David left his office and drove to the school. He'd practiced his apology in the car, but every version sounded hollow and inadequate. Walking down the school hallway, he could hear children's laughter coming from the art room again. The sound made him hopeful and nervous at the same time. He paused outside the door, watching through the window. Rosa was helping a little boy mix colors on a palette, showing him how blue and yellow made green. She wore the same paint-splattered apron as last week, and her face lit up whenever one of the kids showed her their work. There was something so natural about the way she interacted with the children, like she was born to teach. Lily was at the same table as before, working on what looked like a continuation of her rainbow animal zoo. She was completely absorbed in her painting, her tongue poking out slightly in concentration, the way it used to when she was really focused on something. David took a deep breath and knocked softly on the doorframe. "Come in," Rosa called out, glancing up from the little boy's painting. When she saw David, her smile became more guarded, but she didn't look angry or upset. Just careful. "Hi, Rosa," David said quietly. "I was wondering if I could talk to you. For a moment. When you have time, of course." "Daddy!" Lily looked up from her painting, her face beaming. "Look what I'm making. It's a story about all my animals going on an adventure together." David walked over to see Lily's work. She'd created an entire landscape with purple elephants, green lions, blue giraffes, and pink zebras, all walking together toward a rainbow in the distance. It was beautiful and imaginative and so much more colorful than anything she'd created since her mother died. "This is incredible, Lily," he said. And he meant it. "Tell me about their adventure." "Well, they were all sad because they looked different from other animals," Lily explained, pointing to each colorful creature. "But then they met each other and realized that being different made them special. Now they're going to the rainbow. Because Rosa said rainbows are made of all different colors working together." David glanced at Rosa, who was listening with a gentle smile on her face. "That sounds like a wonderful story." After the children finished their projects and began cleaning up, Rosa approached David. "You wanted to talk?" "Yes," David said, his mouth suddenly dry. "I owe you an apology, a big one." Rosa nodded toward the hallway. "Let's step outside so the kids can clean up." They walked into the empty hallway, and David felt like he was back in elementary school himself, about to get in trouble with the principal. Rosa crossed her arms and waited, not making it easy for him but not looking hostile either. "I'm sorry," David began. "What I did at the restaurant was completely unacceptable. You didn't deserve to be treated that way, especially not in front of everyone. I was having a hard time, but that's no excuse for taking it out on you." Rosa was quiet for a moment, studying his face. "Thank you for apologizing. That night was really difficult for me." "I can imagine," David said, feeling the shame wash over him again. "I found out you're studying to be a teacher. You're volunteering here with kids, working at the restaurant, going to school. You're doing amazing things, and I judged you completely, unfairly." "You don't know anything about me," Rosa said, but her tone wasn't harsh. It was more matter-of-fact than angry. "You're right, I don't. But I can see how you are with Lily, and with all these kids. You have a gift. My daughter hasn't smiled like this in months, and after one afternoon with you, she's excited about something again." Rosa's expression softened slightly. "She's a special little girl, very artistic and thoughtful. She talks about her mom sometimes." David nodded. My wife died 6 months ago. Cancer. Lily's been struggling, and honestly, so have I. That night, at the restaurant, I think I was just angry at the world, and you happened to be there when I finally snapped. I'm sorry for your loss, Rosa said quietly. I wondered why she seemed so sad sometimes, even when she was painting. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching through the window as Lily carefully packed her art supplies. Can I ask you something? David said. What made you want to work with kids? Rosa's face lit up. I've always loved working with children. They see the world so differently than adults do. They're honest about their feelings, and they believe in magic and possibilities. When kids are going through hard things, art gives them a way to express what they can't say in words. Is that what you're studying? Art therapy? Elementary education with a focus on art therapy, yes. I want to create programs that help kids process difficult emotions through creative expression. Too many children suffer in silence because adults expect them to handle things the same way grown-ups do. David thought about all the times he'd told Lily to be strong or stay positive without giving her a real way to deal with her sadness. That's exactly what Lily needs, he admitted. I've been trying so hard to fix everything for her, but maybe I should have been helping her express how she feels instead. Grief is complicated for children, Rosa explained. They often feel guilty for having fun or being happy because they think it means they're forgetting the person they lost. Art helps them understand that they can miss someone and still enjoy life. Over the next few weeks, David found himself arriving early to pick up Lily from the art program, just to watch her work. Rosa always greeted him politely, and gradually their conversations became longer and more natural. He learned that Rosa was 23, the first person in her family to go to college. She worked at the restaurant 4 nights a week to pay for school and helped support her younger siblings. Her dream was to open an art therapy center for children dealing with trauma. That's an incredible goal, David said one afternoon as they watched Lily teach another little girl how to paint clouds. Have you thought about what kind of funding you'd need for something like that? Rosa laughed, but not in a happy way. Funding? I'm barely keeping up with my student loan payments. A center like that would cost more money than I'll probably ever have. You'd be surprised, David said thoughtfully. There are grants available for community programs, especially ones focused on children's mental health, and investors who care about social impact. You really think someone would invest in something like that? I think someone would be crazy not to. What you're doing with these kids is changing their lives. As the weeks passed, David noticed changes in both Lily and himself. His daughter was sleeping better, eating more, and had even started playing with friends again. She still missed her mother terribly, but the crushing sadness that had surrounded her was beginning to lift. And David found himself looking forward to their conversations with Rosa more than he wanted to admit. She challenged his assumptions about success and happiness, while he found himself offering encouragement for her dreams and insights from his business experience. One evening, Lily came down with a stomach bug and couldn't go to school. David stayed home to take care of her, but by afternoon she was feeling worse instead of better. Dad, my tummy really hurts, she whimpered from the couch, wrapped in her favorite blanket. David was about to call the doctor when his phone buzzed. With a text message, it was from Rosa. Hi, Mr. Thompson. Lily wasn't at art class today. I hope she's okay. I brought her some supplies to work on her zoo story at home if she's feeling up to it. Would it be okay if I dropped them by? An hour later, Rosa knocked on their front door carrying a small bag of art supplies and a container of what smelled like homemade soup. My grandmother's recipe, she said when David opened the door. It helps with everything from heartbreak to stomach aches. Lily's face lit up when she saw Rosa, despite feeling sick. You came to see me. Of course I did. I brought some special paint so you can work on your animal story while you rest. Rosa sat on the floor next to the couch, helping Lily create get-well cards for her stuffed animals. She stayed for 2 hours, reading stories and making silly voices that had Lily giggling despite her stomach ache. When it was time for Rosa to leave, Lily hugged her tightly. Thank you for taking care of me, Lily whispered. You're like a fairy godmother, but for real life. As David walked Rosa to her car, he felt something shift between them. The awkwardness was gone, replaced by genuine friendship and mutual respect. "Thank you," he said, "not just for tonight, but for everything you've done for Lily. You've given her something I couldn't. Hope." Rosa smiled. "She's given me something, too. She's reminded me why I want to become a teacher." That night, as David tucked a much improved Lily into bed, she looked up at him with serious eyes. "Dad, I think Rosa is special. She makes everything feel possible again." David smiled, realizing his daughter had put into words exactly what he'd been feeling. "Yes, sweetheart. I think she's very special, too." 6 weeks had passed since that first awkward encounter in the school hallway, and everything had changed. What started as polite conversations between David and Rosa had grown into something neither of them expected, a real friendship built on mutual respect and shared concern for Lily. The transformation in his daughter was remarkable. Lily now woke up excited about Tuesdays and Thursdays, not just for art class, but because she knew she'd see Rosa. She'd started bringing her paintings home and explaining every detail to David over dinner. Her appetite had returned, her nightmares had mostly stopped, and she was even participating in class again. But it wasn't just Lily who was changing. David found himself thinking about their conversations long after he'd dropped Lily off at school. Rosa had a way of seeing the world that challenged everything he thought he knew about success and happiness. "You know what's funny?" Rosa had said during one of their talks while watching the kids paint. "These children create the most beautiful art when they stop worrying about making it perfect. They just let themselves feel and express whatever comes up." David had thought about that comment for days. When was the last time he'd done anything without worrying about perfection? When had he stopped allowing himself to just feel? One Thursday afternoon, as the art program was wrapping up, Lily ran over to them with tears in her eyes. David's heart jumped, thinking something was wrong, but then he saw she was holding a painting. "Look what I made," she said, her voice filled with emotion. The painting showed 3 figures standing together under a bright sun. One was clearly meant to be David, tall with dark hair and a business suit. Another was obviously Lily, small with pigtails and a yellow dress. But the third figure made David's breath catch in his throat. It was a woman with long brown hair wearing a paint-splattered apron, surrounded by colorful butterflies. Above all 3 figures, Lily had painted the words "My Family" in rainbow letters. Rosa stared at the painting, her eyes filling with tears. "Lily, this is beautiful, but I'm not." "You are too part of my family," Lily interrupted with the fierce certainty only children possess. "Family isn't just people who live in the same house. Family is people who take care of each other and make each other happy." David felt his throat tighten. When had his 8-year-old daughter become so wise? "She's right," he said quietly, looking at Rosa. "You've been more of a family to us these past few weeks than some of our actual relatives." Rosa wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Lily replied, hugging Rosa around the waist. "Just keep being you." That evening, as they drove home, Lily chattered about her painting and about how Rosa had helped her understand that families can look different for different people. "Mom used to say that love makes a family, not just blood," Lily said matter-of-factly. "I think she would like Rosa a lot." David smiled, thinking about his wife. She would have adored Rosa's kindness and dedication to helping children. She would have been proud of how Lily was learning to open her heart to new people while still honoring her mother's memory. The next week brought an unexpected challenge. Rosa looked exhausted when she arrived at the art program, and David noticed she was moving more slowly than usual. "Everything okay?" he asked when she stepped into the hallway for a quick break. Rosa hesitated, then sighed. "I'm fine. Just tired. I've been picking up extra shifts at the restaurant to help my family with some bills. My little brother needs new glasses and my mom's car broke down." "How many hours are you working?" David asked, concerned. "Between the restaurant, school, and volunteering here?" "About 70 hours a week," Rosa admitted. "But it's okay. I'm used to it." David was quiet for a moment, thinking, what if I told you there might be another way? What do you mean? I've been doing some research about grants for community art programs. There's funding available for students who want to create pilot programs for children's mental health services. You could apply for a grant to run an expanded version of this art therapy program. Rosa's eyes widened. You really think I could get something like that? I think you're exactly the kind of person they're looking for. You have the education, the experience, and most importantly, the heart for this work. And if you got the grant, it would pay you to do what you're already doing for free. Over the next few days, David found himself thinking about Rosa's situation more and more. He'd built his company by recognizing talent and potential, and Rosa had both in abundance. But more than that, he'd seen firsthand how her work was changing children's lives, including his daughters. That weekend, while Lily was at a sleepover with her friend Katie, the first sleepover she'd wanted to attend since her mother died, David made a decision. He spent Saturday morning researching grant opportunities and creating a proposal outline for Rosa's art therapy program. On Monday, he called Rosa and asked if she'd like to meet for coffee to discuss the grant applications. I really appreciate this, Mr. Thompson, Rosa said as they sat in the small cafe near the university. But I have to ask, why are you helping me? I mean, I'm grateful, but we barely knew each other a few months ago. David stirred his coffee, thinking about how to answer. Because you saved my daughter, and maybe me too. I didn't save anyone. I just helped Lily paint some pictures. No, you did much more than that. You gave her a safe place to express her feelings when I didn't know how to help her do that. You showed her that it's okay to be sad and happy at the same time. You taught her that being different is something to celebrate, not hide. Rosa was quiet, listening. And you showed me something, too, David continued. You showed me that the most important work in the world isn't always the work that pays the most money. What you do with those kids, the way you care about them, the way you believe in their potential, that's changing the world one child at a time. I just want to help kids, Rosa said simply. Exactly. And that's why you deserve support to do it properly. They spent the next 2 hours going through grant applications and discussing Rosa's vision for an expanded art therapy program. David was impressed by how thoroughly she'd thought through everything, from the therapeutic benefits of different art techniques to the logistics of running programs for different age groups. Have you ever thought about opening your own center? Someday? David asked. Rosa laughed. That's a nice dream, but it would take more money than I'll ever have. Plus, I wouldn't even know where to start with something like that. I would, David said quietly. Rosa looked at him with surprise. What do you mean? I mean, I know about starting businesses, about finding investors, about turning dreams into reality. And I know talent when I see it. Are you saying you'd want to help me start a center? David leaned forward. I'm saying that if you got these grants and proved that your program works, I'd be very interested in helping you expand it. Not as charity, but as an investment in something that matters. Rosa stared at him. Why would you do that? Because 3 months ago, I was an angry, bitter man who was failing as a father. My daughter was failing in school and barely speaking to me. Now she's thriving, she's happy, and she's teaching me about love and family and what really matters in life. That's worth investing in. As they walked back to their cars, Rosa stopped and turned to face David. Can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you think your wife would be proud of the man you're becoming? David felt tears prick his eyes. It was a question he'd been afraid to ask himself. I hope so, he said honestly. I think she'd be proud of both of us. Of how we've helped Lily heal and of how we've become friends despite everything. I think she would be too, Rosa said with a gentle smile. That evening, Lily came home from her sleepover full of stories and excitement. As David tucked her into bed, she looked up at him with those serious eyes that reminded him so much of her mother. Dad, are you and Rosa going to be friends forever? I hope so, sweetheart. Would you like that? Yes, Lily said firmly. Because Rosa makes you smile again. Really smile, not just the pretend ones you used to do. David kissed her forehead, marveling at how much his 8-year-old daughter understood about life and love and healing. Rosa. Makes me smile too, Lily. She's taught us both a lot about what family really means. As he turned off Lily's bedroom light, David reflected on how much had changed in just a few short months. He'd gone from being a man consumed by grief and anger to someone who was learning to hope again. And it all started with a young woman's patience and kindness toward his daughter. Sometimes the best things in life really do come from the most unexpected places. 1 year later, the autumn sun streamed through the windows of Oakwood Elementary as Rosa Martinez walked down the familiar hallway for the first time as an official teacher. She carried a box of art supplies and wore a bright yellow dress that Lily had helped her pick out the weekend before. Today was her first day as the school's new art therapy coordinator, a position created specifically for her after the success of her grant-funded pilot program. The past 12 months had been a whirlwind of change for everyone. Rosa had not only received the grant she and David had worked on together, but her art therapy program had become so successful that the school district decided to expand it to 3 other elementary schools. Children who had struggled with everything from anxiety to grief were finding their voices through paintbrushes and colored pencils. David had been true to his word about supporting her dreams, but not in the way Rosa had expected. Instead of just providing financial backing, he had introduced her to other business leaders who cared about children's mental health. Together, they had formed a nonprofit organization dedicated to bringing art therapy programs to schools that couldn't otherwise afford them. The Rosa Martinez Foundation for Creative Healing, David had announced at the launch party 6 months earlier. Named after the woman who taught us all that healing comes in many forms and sometimes the most powerful medicine is simply being seen and understood. Rosa had cried that day, not just because of the honor, but because she realized how far she'd come from that embarrassing night at the restaurant when she'd felt so small and worthless. Now, as she set up her new classroom, she thought about all the children she would help this year. The walls were covered with artwork from her previous students, including several pieces by Lily, who was now thriving in 4th grade. Speaking of Lily, Rosa could hear familiar footsteps running down the hallway. Miss Rosa, Miss Rosa. Lily burst through the classroom door, her backpack bouncing behind her. I can't believe you're really going to be my teacher this year. Not your regular teacher, Rosa laughed, opening her arms for a hug. But I'll be here twice a week for art therapy classes and any time you need someone to talk to. Lily squeezed her tight. Dad says you're going to help lots of kids now, not just the ones in the after-school program. That's right, and I learned how to do it better by working with kids like you who taught me what you really needed. David appeared in the doorway carrying a bouquet of sunflowers, Rosa's favorite flowers, something he'd learned during one of their many conversations over the past year. Congratulations, Rosa, he said, his smile genuine and proud. How does it feel to be living your dream? Scary and exciting and perfect all at the same time, Rosa replied, accepting the flowers. I still can't believe this is real sometimes. It's real because you made it real, David said. You had the vision, the dedication, and the heart to make it happen. I just helped with some of the practical stuff. Lily rolled her eyes in the way only a 9-year-old can. Dad, you did way more than practical stuff. You helped Rosa write all those papers and talk to all those important people and stayed up late helping her practice her presentations. David's cheeks reddened slightly. Over the past year, he and Rosa had spent countless hours working together on grant applications, business plans, and program development. What had started as him wanting to help had evolved into a true partnership built on shared values and mutual respect. We helped each other, Rosa said diplomatically, though her eyes sparkled with amusement at David's embarrassment. The truth was their friendship had deepened into something neither of them had expected but both treasured. They had learned to lean on each other through challenges, celebrate each other's successes, and support each other's dreams. David had become more than a benefactor. He was Rosa's closest friend and biggest cheerleader. And Rosa had helped David rediscover parts of himself he thought he'd lost forever. Can we go celebrate at our restaurant? Lily asked, bouncing on her toes. I want to show everyone that Miss Rosa is a real teacher now, David and Rosa exchanged glances. The restaurant, their restaurant, as Lily now called it, had become a symbol of how far they'd all come. They ate there at least once a month now, and the staff always greeted them like family. The manager had even framed one of Lily's paintings and hung it near their favorite table. That sounds perfect, David agreed. But first, don't you have something special you wanted to give Rosa? Lily's eyes lit up as she dug into her backpack. I almost forgot. She pulled out a wrapped package and handed it to Rosa. I made this for your first day. Rosa carefully unwrapped the gift to reveal a beautiful handmade book. The cover was decorated with painted flowers and butterflies, and in Lily's careful handwriting were the words, The Story of Miss Rosa, How a Waitress Became a Teacher and Saved My Family. Rosa opened the book to find page after page of drawings and stories documenting their journey together. There was the purple elephant from Lily's first art class, the rainbow zoo animals, pictures of Rosa helping other children, and drawings of all three of them together at various moments over the past year. The final page showed Rosa standing in front of a classroom full of happy children, with the words, Miss Rosa teaches kids that it's okay to feel sad sometimes, and that art can help you feel better. She taught my dad to smile again and taught me that families can grow in wonderful ways. The end. Love, Lily. Rosa felt tears streaming down her cheeks as she looked at the beautiful book. Lily, this is the most amazing gift anyone has ever given me. Do you really like it? I love it more than words can say, and I'm going to treasure it forever. That evening, the three of them sat at their usual corner table at the restaurant, the same table where everything had started a year ago. The irony wasn't lost on any of them. You know what's funny? Rosa said, twirling spaghetti around her fork. A year ago, I thought my life was falling apart. I was exhausted, broke, and convinced I'd never achieve my dreams. Getting yelled at that night made me question whether I was cut out for any of this. I'm still sorry about that night, David said quietly. Don't be, Rosa replied. If it hadn't happened, we might never have really gotten to know each other. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best things. Lily nodded sagely. Mom used to say that storms make the flowers grow stronger. David reached over and squeezed his daughter's hand. Your mom was a very smart woman. She would love Miss Rosa, Lily said with certainty. I know she would. I would have loved to meet her, Rosa said softly. From everything you've told me, she sounds like an amazing person. She was, David agreed. And I think she'd be proud of all of us, of how we found each other and helped each other heal. As they ate dessert, Rosa looked around the restaurant that had witnessed their lowest point and was now celebrating their highest. The same waitstaff, who had watched David's outburst, now smiled and waved at them like old friends. The manager had already stopped by twice to congratulate Rosa on her new position. Can I tell you both something? Rosa said, setting down her spoon. David and Lily nodded. When I was little, I used to dream about having a family that chose to love me. Not just because they had to, but because they wanted to. I imagined what it would feel like to have people who celebrated my successes and supported me when things got hard. She looked at both of them with shining eyes. I never imagined it could feel this wonderful. Lily reached over and took Rosa's hand. You're stuck with us now, Miss Rosa. Forever and ever. I can't think of anywhere else I'd rather be stuck, Rosa laughed. As they left the restaurant that night, David reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. A year ago, he had been a broken man taking his anger out on an innocent person. Tonight, he was walking out of the same restaurant with two of the most important people in his life, feeling more content and hopeful than he had in years. The wrong order that had started everything seemed like a distant memory now. What mattered was what they had built together, a family founded not on biology or obligation, but on love, understanding, and mutual support. Outside the restaurant, under the same streetlights that had witnessed their first encounter, Lily looked up at the two adults who had become her world. Dad, Miss Rosa, can we make a promise? What kind of promise, sweetheart? David asked. That no matter what happens, we'll always be a family. The three of us. Rosa and David exchanged glances over Lily's head, both of them thinking about how this remarkable little girl had been the bridge that brought them together, and the reason they had all learned to hope again. "That's an easy promise to make," Rosa said, kneeling down to Lily's level. "The easiest promise I've ever made," David agreed, joining them. As they walked toward their cars under the starlit sky, all three of them knew that sometimes the most beautiful stories begin with the most unlikely encounters. And sometimes what seems like an ending is really just the beginning of something wonderful.